And if you provide a service between London and Paris and one airline can't do it, another airline will step into its shoes. If you lose Loganair and our connectivity and our services, there's nobody else out there who can do it. And that's really important to understand. What we do is vital for the people who need our services. So we also fly to Heathrow. We fly to 35 airports across the UK. We're more present in across the UK than any airline at all. So we know the UK territory really well. And we fly to Heathrow between 20 and 30 times a week. So we have a bit of everything. We connect regions, we connect major cities, we connect tiny communities.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. I'm your host, Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simply Flying. On this show, I speak with aviation leaders, innovators, and policymakers driving real action, separating the signal from the noise to spotlight what's truly moving the industry forward. The same focus that is at the heart of our new book, Sustainability in the Air, Volume 2. In it, Dirk Singer and I take stock of how far the industry has come and how far we still need to go. With the global carbon budget potentially running out by 2032, the clock is ticking. But the most promising solutions today aren't just environmentally sound. They are economically superior as well. From SAF and contrail mitigation to direct air capture, the book offers a practical roadmap for aviation's journey to net zero. Get your copy today. Link in the show notes. My guest today is Luke Farajallah, the CEO of Loganair. Loganair is the UK's largest regional airline and truly one of the most unique carriers in the world. They operate the world's shortest commercial flight, just 60 seconds, between two islands in Scotland's Orkney archipelago. Loganair is positioning itself as a pioneer in sustainable aviation, with partnerships spanning electric aircraft with Heart Aerospace, hydrogen propulsion with ZeroAvia, and even equipping their jets with water vapor sensors to study contrails for the UK Met Office. What's particularly fascinating is their approach to carbon offsetting. Rather than making it optional, every Loganair ticket includes a £1 contribution to their Green Skies program, funding local environmental projects across Scotland. It's this combination of serving remote communities with lifeline services while pushing the boundaries of aviation innovation that makes Loganair so compelling. Enjoy this conversation. Luke, welcome to the podcast. You're the CEO of Loganair. For those who are not aware, tell us about Loganair. You're not British Airways, yet you've got slots at Heathrow, isn't it?
We do. So Loganair is it's a regional airline. Forgive me for smiling when I talk about Loganair because it's hard not to when you think about the amazing airline that we are. We're a 63-year-old airline, started originally by a man called Willie Logan. So we're still one of those few airlines where we carry the family name of the person who founded the company. And in fact, we try to reflect his heritage in our business because he did other things apart from running an airline. He also built bridges and constructed other engineering projects across Scotland. So we named our boardroom Tay because he built a bridge over the river Tay. And he also...
How charming.
So we want to make sure we don't lose the link back to our original owner and original founder. He started with one very small 4-seater aircraft that was flying on a taxi service between Edinburgh and Inverness. And we've grown over those 63 years now to be the UK's largest regional airline. Regional, by definition, means the vast majority of our work is within the UK region. We do have a small percentage of flights that go across to Norway and Denmark, and we also fly private charters overseas for either individuals or businesses. But our scheduled network really keeps us within UK boundaries most of the time. We have a fleet of 4 different types of aircraft. We fly to some of the most remote parts of the country. We're the only airline globally who flies and lands on a beach commercially. We have the world's shortest commercial flight.
Wow.
Either the really short haul version, which is 60 seconds, or if the wind is in the wrong direction, it can be up to 90 seconds or 120 seconds. But in every
What route is this, Luke? I'm very curious now.
between 2 points called Westray and Papa Westray in the Orkney Isle. So these are lifeline services. These are services that keep teachers and pupils connected. We fly the vet, the doctor, the midwife. We fly newborn babies to and from their hospital where they're born on the mainland. It's a real privilege, and that particular route and the work we do in Orkney has been just extended for another 4 years with the partnership with the Orkney Council that we work with. So we work with quite a few local, regional, and national organisations to make sure that some of the routes, the small handful of routes that we fly, needs some support financially, because if you were just looking at it through a commercial lens, you would say there's no real reason to do those routes. But when you look at the type of connectivity, which is lifeline connections, very small numbers of people, very small remote communities, not only do we feel you shouldn't look at those commercially, you should actually look at those as high value from an absolutely right thing to do perspective. And in every other way, it adds value to our business, maybe not financially, but it enriches everything that we do, because this is different. This is unusual. This is important. And if you provide a service between London and Paris and one airline can't do it, another airline will step into its shoes. If you lose Loganair and our connectivity and our services, there's nobody else out there who can do it. And that's really important to understand. What we do is vital for the people who need our services. So we also fly to Heathrow. We fly to 35 airports across the UK. We're more present in across the UK than any airline at all. So we know the UK territory really well. And we fly to Heathrow between 20 and 30 times a week. So we have a bit of everything. We connect regions, we connect major cities, we connect tiny communities. And it's just a real privilege running this business, because for someone who was really born into a world where aviation felt very natural to me at a very young age from an interest and hobby point of view, to be able to drive my career forwards on the basis of starting it as a hobby. The problem, of course, when you become the chief executive is you spend less time with the airplanes. You spend more time with spreadsheets and more times on meetings, which is also great. But the truth is, I got into aviation because I'm one of those people who can't avoid looking up when an aircraft flies over my head, whether it's an aircraft or a helicopter. And that helps when you have to go to work for very long hours, because running an airline is it's a tough gig, and you've got to enjoy your work, would be my advice to everybody who's listening. Because if you can find a job that really makes you happy and makes you smile, it never really feels like a job. So that's my kind of headline.
Wow, absolutely. I can relate to so much of what you said. I'm complete aviation geek myself. Last 18 years, I've been in an industry with no experience prior to this in aviation, and I love every moment of being in the industry. I think you should do a mileage run competition of sorts for the most unique destinations you fly to. The beach, the shortest route, because you've got such unique things, right? Or someone who can fly to every single one of your airports, given that you fly to the most number of UK airports.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think the other thing is, and this is also really important, because the feature of our business is that we have a UK-based call center. And now there's nothing wrong with having call centers around the world if you're a global organization. But I've already mentioned destinations and points on the map that I think most people would find difficult to find, let alone describe where they are and what they are. And therefore, our call center and the people who work in our call center who live in Scotland are really able quickly to lock into what the passengers who are calling want and where they're trying to get to and what their challenges might be to get to those places. So it's a unique feature. UK-based call centers are really something that you saw a lot of in the 70s and 80s and 90s, and then a lot of them moved overseas because they're transactional. We are absolutely not transactional. We are all about the people. The DNA of our business is about people and community, and therefore it's really important that we have people in our call center and working for Loganair who understand in their DNA what we do.
Right. Now, you took over as CEO at Loganair in early 2024. You've maintained Loganair's commitment to sustainability while
Yeah.
addressing operational challenges. This is post COVID, of course. How do you
Yeah.
balance competing priorities like growth versus sustainability? And run us through some of the sustainability initiatives, because I think you're doing some very unique and innovative things.
Yeah. I mean, the question about balance is, I would put it slightly differently. We test our decisions always against, do they meet the safety criteria? First of all, are they safe to do? Do they meet an operational delivery criteria, an operational stability and excellence criteria? Do they meet a financial criteria? All we do now is we add sustainability to our list of tests when we make a decision. So it has to have more than just one dimension to it. Every decision has to be past a lot of ticks in the boxes from different parts of the business. So we've done a few things. We've brought the right people in who have expertise in that and have a background in sustainability, which is important because you do need specialists. This isn't a generalist subject; it's a specialist subject. So we have very good people who have a background, who went to university to study these types of subjects, which is important for us to have the expertise and the experience. Secondly, it's multifaceted. So we have for example, our carbon offset scheme, the Green Skies project, which is something our passengers can contribute to, where a small amount of the ticket price goes towards well-known and well-advertised and tested and demonstrably high quality projects, so sustainable projects, and they tend to be in and around Scotland in some of the smaller communities where the money is offset for particular pieces of work or environmental initiatives or projects or schools or colleges or other things.
Right. And look, just to bring
Yeah,
you in on that, is this voluntary, or I believe Loganair includes
we do. We do.
a
Yeah.
charge in
Yeah.
the ticket where all flights are offset, isn't it?
We do, and we think that's important because everybody who's flying has no choice but to leave a carbon footprint, and so we want to make sure that sort of relationship and the partnership is. We don't think there's no option but to have a carbon footprint at the moment when you're flying, and therefore we think it's responsible of us, and we think it's responsible of our customers to have a small levy to include something which gives us an ability to offset something on their behalf. And actually, we get very little negative feedback about that, very little resistance, if any. I can't remember the last time somebody fundamentally disagreed or complained, which means the education of why this is important is getting through. And it means that generally the job to encourage people to fly is easier because the consciousness with which we all have to make decisions now, and the decision we all have to make about our own environmental footprint is slightly easier when you're buying an airline ticket with Loganair because you're already taking a step towards doing something about it, and that's important.
And that's very, very interesting, because I'm just looking at your very unique route network, and there's a flight from Jersey to Isle of Man, which I believe should be fairly high yielding, given the kind of people I'm guessing who fly there, or even from Sunburg to Bergen. These
Yeah.
are such unique routes, and to, I would think that people are quite climate aware when flying these routes, and to give them an option that by default you're taking care of your footprint, I think is quite innovative.
Yes, I think so. And as I say, the UK in general is moving quite quickly in its own right, and therefore we're not a country that's naturally resisting this type of conversation. We're a country that's embracing this kind of conversation, which is, I don't really want to talk about it sort of on this podcast tremendously, but I always laugh when people protest in this country about the environmental situation, because actually there are so many other countries you can go to express your protest other than the UK, which by comparison, and everyone can do more and every country can do more. But if you're going to make a protest and you're going to make, news headlines, my argument would be do it where it's really getting cut through and be worthwhile. Of course, freedom of expression and freedom of speech is well known in the UK, so perhaps that's the reason why.
Indeed. Now, you've set a very ambitious target of having carbon neutral operations by 2040.
Yeah.
Yet you've also likened Loganair's approach to green technologies like fishing in a big pool.
Yeah.
I quote you here. And you've got parallel investments in SAF, electric, hydrogen. How do you balance all this? And is there going to be one dominant strategy going forward for you?
So there will be eventually, but we feel that if we just take SAF as an example, sustainable aviation fuel, if we consider that option as the solution for regional flying, we're probably missing a trick, because the options available to shorter distance flying and to smaller aircraft, the options are far wider than just sustainable aviation fuel. If you're flying from the UK to America, or further afield, sustainable aviation fuel right now is the best option, because in terms of the other options, it's less likely that emerging technology will support larger aircraft and commercial services with, more than 50 people on. It's going to take a long time for that to come through. So we don't want to be, and I resist this in all cases, not just with this particular argument. I do not want Loganair to be considered in other groups of airlines for everything, because we're very different. And for all of the reasons I told you at the beginning, where we, if we were not here tomorrow, we'd have a big gap and it'd be a big problem for the UK to connect itself. We can't just jump into the same pond as sustainable aviation fuel as perhaps, a larger airline might. Having said that, sustainable aviation fuel at the moment, SAF is, it's not being produced in the UK to the quantities it will be required. So there's a problem with the amount that's being produced in the UK anyway. It's about 4 times more expensive than conventional aviation fuel at the moment. There are revenue mechanisms now, and there are cost mechanisms to try to balance that. But just as a headline, there are 4 times more cost associated with that type of fuel. And it's also being imported. So aside from everything else, it's coming in from Europe. So there's a carbon footprint associated with it being brought into Europe from Europe. So for all those reasons, SAF won't be the ultimate answer for a regional airline. So you have to look elsewhere. So that means we're talking about SAF and we're doing our bit towards SAF and we're obliging the mandate, which is fine. But secondly, we look at other forms of technology. So there's hybrid electric, which is our unique collaboration with Heart Aerospace. They're developing a 30-seater aircraft with batteries that can fly with 2 engines that have conventional fuel and propulsion systems, and 2 engines that will be electrically charged, so from batteries that are on board the aircraft. So it's future generation technology. It's probably not going to be available within a 10-year period. Potentially this side of the decade, you could start to see some early signs of the certification process moving through. But there's a lot of certification to get through before you can see these on commercial flights. Having said that, Heart Aerospace are doing some really exciting things and got some really smart people behind them. And a 30-seat aircraft over 200 to 300 kilometers is a perfect fit for Loganair. There's a real easy answer to the question, why are we talking to them? However, we're also working on hydrogen projects as well. Hydrogen propulsion has its own merits. Last week in Scotland, I was at an event where the First Minister of Scotland announced investment into a project which is being delivered by ZeroAvia. And Val,
that was indeed big news, yeah.
Yeah, so Val, the founder of ZeroAvia, myself, and others from the Scottish Government were all talking about what that might mean for Loganair as well. We're also looking and working with Cranfield University. We're working with a number of other manufacturers. So when I talk about fishing in a big pond, I think we shouldn't exclude anything. I think we should be open-minded towards everything. And my strong sense is that the first fully sustainable commercial flight from an airline as we see them today should be a regional airline, and therefore as the leading regional airline it should be Loganair. That's my determination. So I'm really keen to make sure that we are at the right tables, having the right conversations, and then participating energy from our own team and our own experts into the conversation, because the more people who do that with an open mind, the quicker we'll get to the solutions.
I love it. I love the role you want to play as a catalyst, as a regional airline. That's where the innovation is going to happen. I've admired your partnership with Heart Aerospace. Now, given the latest moves that Heart has done to bring its technology development over to the US, does that help or hurt you in any way?
No, it doesn't change anything, because the testing of the aircraft, the ES-30, was always going to be in the US. And the fact that they have a head office in Sweden and the founder, Anders, is Swedish, and many of the team have come from Europe, makes no sense at all just to have a head office in a part of the world where the testing is not taking place. So I completely understand it. Their program is unchanged. Their outlook is unchanged. The certification timeline is unchanged, and our commitment is unchanged. So in many ways, it's just a geography change of a head office. And I think they're smart to do it, because at a time when they're not selling a product, if you like, and looking for capital investment, why keep open a head office in an expensive part of Europe London is expensive, Sweden's expensive, Stockholm's expensive. These are expensive parts of the world to maintain big offices. You need to be where the aircraft is, where the product is, and where the testing is. So I'm fully supportive. And they were, by the way, very open about this a long time ago, long before the last few weeks when it was announced publicly. We were completely involved and aware of what they were doing.
I love it. I think that's the way you bring the customers on board, share your vision, and delighted to see how on board you are. You mentioned ZeroAvia as well. Where do you see hydrogen fitting into your plans?
So it might be a strange thing to say. Hydrogen is growing on me as a technology. And it's funny because years ago, I was working for an airline called Wizz Air in Budapest, and the founder of Wizz Air, Joseph, and the founder of ZeroAvia have lots of common traits between them. In the sense of their focus, determination, their sort of ruthless approach towards achieving what they want to achieve. And I learned an enormous amount from Joe, who's the founder at Wizz Air. But one of the things he said to me was when we were starting up an airline in Ukraine, I was living in Budapest with my family, and I said to him, I'd like to be involved in this project. Which he said, that's fine, but you have to be in Ukraine if you want to do that, because you can't start something up, you can't be involved, you're not emotionally connected unless you're there. You need to be there. And so I went to Ukraine. I lived there through Monday through Friday and came back to see my family in Budapest over the weekends, which was not our original plan, but it was fine. In aviation, shit happens, right? So and my family understand that. But the reason I'm saying that is because when I met Val for the first time, I was suddenly on his journey, and I realized quite quickly how clearly he sees the world. And when you meet people whose focus is so lacking in opaqueness, he's got no opaqueness at all. He is going on a journey. He's taking his company. He sees the technology. He's driving it forwards with massive energy, and he wants to be with people and partners who see that. And when you're in the room with him, you suddenly realize the infectious nature of what he's saying. You suddenly realize the journey is real and it's credible, and it's being there makes a difference. And now the ironic thing for us is that we are the UK's largest regional, but it's Scotland's airline, and we're based in Scotland. And he's actually opened up a manufacturing plant for one of his propulsion fuel cell systems in Scotland, just down the road from our head office. So without making any sort of pre-announcements, I would say to you, it would be almost impossible to think that Loganair and ZeroAvia will avoid each other. And having got on personally with Val, having now committed to meeting him again at the Paris Air Show, where we're going to do some fireside chats together about Logan and about ZeroAvia, I can see a very happy marriage some point in the future. Or let's say a relationship first before a marriage. Let's say that.
I love it. And thank you for sharing your journey with Viz and Ukraine. It's again very relatable. I once spent time being part of a startup team of a new airline in Doha, and that was a requirement. You got to move from Canada to Doha, be part of the team. And I did move there first for the first 3 months, and then actually brought my family over. And we were living there and living and breathing the airline when we were starting it up.
It changes everything when you're there, when you see it, feel it, touch it, see the people, hear it every day. It changes everything. It's great advice.
Absolutely. Now, still staying on hydrogen, I believe you intend to operate the world's first hydrogen-powered commercial flight from Orkney with a modified Britain-Norman Islander airplane.
Yeah.
Why is this remote Scottish archipelago the ideal testing ground for such groundbreaking technologies?
So I talked to you earlier about the world's shortest commercial flight. And if you're going to test something in a real environment, the world's shortest commercial flight is a real environment. And it's also a particularly important and particularly picturesque environment. The aircraft is a small aircraft with 9 seats, beautiful aircraft. The other thing about Britain Norman is it's a UK-based manufacturer. So you've got the UK's regional. You've got some of the most beautiful, breathtaking scenery in the country in the UK. You've got a UK manufacturer, and you've got a propulsion system, which is being effectively, the inputs are all coming from UK sources. So we think I'm a bit sort of, I don't know what the word is, maybe OCD. When I think things fit together really well and I see them like that, that's why these things fit together. This fits together particularly well. It lines up nicely. I'm forever telling my team, I love the fact that we have water on board, but I want it to be Scottish water. I love the fact that we have notebooks and pens and we have gifts and things for our customers, clients, salespeople. They must be made in the UK. I don't want to see crates coming over from China for the UK's largest regional airline. I want our aircraft to be maintained in the UK. I want our people to be recruited in the UK. And I'm a great advocate for keeping things local, which also goes back to the sustainability piece, because everything you do that avoids bringing something in from overseas, or bringing in recruiting and positioning everything around the country because it hasn't started its journey in the UK, you're adding to the carbon footprint. And therefore, all of these things have lines back to how you, in your own mind as a CEO, philosophically, ideologically, and from a delivery point of view, culturally, I suppose, in the business, everybody has to start thinking about what we can do more for ourselves. And this is just one of those things. A smaller aircraft, British made, UK, beautiful, breathtaking scenery in Scotland, UK's largest regional airline based in Scotland, technology that comes from the UK. I think it's a match. Why wouldn't it be?
I love how this conversation has the universe is conspiring for us to succeed kind of feel to it.
I keep saying to people, you make your own destiny, and if you forget how to lose, and if you forget how to be second, and you just focus on being first, you pretty soon you get into the rhythm of winning, and you genuinely do. If you do not accept that failure is going to be an option, of course you have to know how to deal with it. But we last year our operational performance saw us be 22nd or something in European stats. In 12 months, we went from that position to being second. And second to Jet2, whose operational performance is off the charts, stellar. So, and it's not just operational performance. It was the customer journey. It was the experience. It was the service. It was the people. So that's not me. That's everybody combined. That's every single person understanding whatever they're doing. They're making that possible. And the more I do I honestly believe the chief executive's job is not to be desk-bound, dealing with spreadsheets and all the other bits I talked to you about. It's simply to get these messages through to people in a convincing and influential way that gives everyone the sense that it's believable, making people believe that these things can happen to start with, then giving them the training and the tools to do it, and empowering them to do it. So everyone in the business starts to think differently. And when you forget that, you're not getting out of bed in the morning and starting with an "I'm sorry" to the customers, or "I apologize" to your partners. You start with "We're really happy to announce that we're moving on time," and we're positive and happy to announce that we've arrived on time, and everything is done to a high safety standard. You suddenly start getting into the rhythm of doing it by accident almost. It just happens. It's osmosis, and that's the business we're in. It's creating the experience that just works at a level which is a successful level. That's the hardest thing to maintain. But, football teams do that. Manchester City did that for years and suddenly came crashing down because they had a blip, and, but quality will stay at the top. So I've no doubt at some weeks and months we'll have some difficult challenges, but we'll get back because our rhythm now is a good one.
I love it. I love the vision, and I love the enthusiasm and the energy as well. I know we spoke about technologies and CO2 emissions, but there is also the part about non-CO2 emissions. And again, you've equipped an Embraer aircraft with water vapor sensors, and you're collecting data on contrails in partnership with the UK Met Office. I'm curious, what have been the lessons, and why do you do this, Luke?
So we're just actually midway through fitting the aircraft at the moment. So it's a new project. Good, exciting project again. The Met Office at the cutting edge and the leading edge of environmental technology, innovation, great people, really smart people in the Met Office. You find generally people that, have a background in meteorological training, very smart people. So this is it's a new technology that we agreed to work with the Met Office on. We've got 10 Embraer 145 aircraft that fly at the same sort of altitude as any other aircraft. Some of our smaller turboprop aircraft fly at lower altitude, so it wouldn't be quite as useful for contrail measuring. But we're fitting the water vapor measurement systems to our 10 jets with support from the Met Office. And this is a multi-year project. So once the data starts to be collected, it's all to do with the environmental impact of contrails on the environment, effectively. And we haven't yet seen the first aircraft is actually being fitted at the moment. Second one's going in later on this month. This next month. And very soon they'll be fitted through the rest of this year. But I'll happily come back and talk to you about what we're seeing from that in terms of results when we do have them. But it's 130 kilos of equipment. The detractors say, well, it's going to add 130 kilos to the weight, so you're going to burn more fuel, and there's more. You put something in an aircraft, there's more to go wrong. But if you're constrained by all of those things, you're never going to do anything that's exciting. So we're doing it, and we'll see what the results will be when we start flying. And I can't wait.
130 kilos. Now, Luke, I've spoken to ample airline CEOs who are willing to take out 50 kilos from the aircraft to save on fuel. You're ready to put in 130 kilos per takeoff, per landing. How do you justify the additional fuel burn, and who's paying this for you? I hope you're not incurring all the costs.
No. Well, first of all, it's the right thing to do because we should be contributing towards solutions that improve the environment. So number one, there's a bigger game here rather than 50 kilos of weight. Honestly, the equipment is being purchased by the Met Office. We are fitting it. It's taking a bit more maintenance time than it normally would with an aircraft on the ground for a few more days to do that. But we're managing that within our own schedule. So we take a bit of we manage that. I'm less worried about the fuel burn because we've got fantastic pilots who manage fuel really well, and a little bit more weight on the aircraft. We'll find a way to compensate for that by taking something else off somewhere along the line. But frankly, you can be held back by Concorde would never, ever, ever have flown if everybody said, oh my God, it's going to be so noisy and so environmentally unfriendly and so heavy and so expensive. No, let's just do it. And then when we've got another problem, we'll deal with that problem, is my view. And therefore, we've got to innovate and be positive about pushing the boundaries a little bit. So I'll figure if our fuel burn goes off the charts, I'll find another way of managing it. I don't think it will, though.
Okay. I love it. I love, once again, the pioneering spirit that you're bringing to the whole game here. We spoke about the Green Skies program earlier. You do have a Green Skies community fund where
Yes.
I believe you've invested over £80,000 in initiatives across the UK. What is this investment, and what's an innovative local project that you've invested in?
So I'm just referring to my page. We've had so many projects that we've put in, and I was looking through them, and I was picking out a couple for myself. But there's a heritage centre in Orkney called the Hoy Heritage Centre, and that was a 19th century church which was converted into a community hub. And basically, it allowed the community to congregate, to discuss matters relating to the environment, to talk about ways of exhibiting and heritage and various other things to give people a sense of connection between the past and where we're going in the future. And it's just given us a sense to. It's also helped them when we've refurbished and replenished that building to reduce their own energy bills and increase the number of events they can host and things like that. So. It's a small community location, widely used and important to that group of people, but wouldn't be doing what it's doing without Loganair's contribution to it, and we wouldn't be able to talk positively about it if we weren't able to sort of have these genuine, authentic initiatives to tell our customers about, because customers do want to know where the money goes. They're not challenging the money, they're challenging where it goes. But also the fact that it's in Orkney, which is one of the key locations for Loganair, makes a big difference to me personally as a CEO and also to the local community. It's just one more way of laying down one more layer of relationship between the airline and the community. And that's why it's important to us to do those. And that's one of many, many initiatives like that.
Delighted to hear. What is the local community feedback you get for these, and how do you actually communicate this to the community?
So many ways. Actually, we have a small group of professionals who fly the aircraft, are the engineers of the aircraft and represent us at the airports. So these are, unlike a lot of airlines, we don't outsource our ground handling in those locations, in the more remote locations. We insource it. So they're local people who are a part of the community. And what's really interesting in these small communities is that, we talk about people, everyone knows each other in Edinburgh. Well, there's no truth in that at all. It's a small place by comparison to London. But when you go to Orkney, everyone really knows each other, everybody. And therefore, reputationally, and that's why it's really important to do what we say we're going to do, because if you don't follow through, it's you're not damaging the reputation of so much of the airline, you're damaging the reputation of the people who are wearing the Loganair badges and the shirts and the uniforms. So it's all about the people, and everything we do is all about people, and that community is no different.
I love it. This brings I can relate to it. I'm a Canadian and I used to live in Whistler, BC, and we had a local airline called Harbour Air,
Oh
which
yeah,
would operate seaplanes. And you're right, I actually knew the people who were in the office who were operating these flights, and the pilots who would hang out the whole day and fly back. There's a small community feel. Everyone in the towns knows one another, and it's
exactly.
different. Very different. I think there are more people in the British Airways lounge at peak hour than there might be in one of the towns that you fly to, for example.
Exactly that. And just to come back to your other question, I was just referring quickly. I thought it was a pound. It's £1 per ticket on the Green Skies. Each Loganair ticket, customer pays £1 on each ticket.
Wow, that this is so different. Recently had an airline CEO on this podcast who told me they have a voluntary way of passengers paying for offsets, and 0.36%, a grand total of 36 out of 1,000 people click buy when they're on the
Yeah,
website, and thinking, why do you even have it, right? And
yeah.
compare this to your approach where let's just add £1 to every flight, and you don't need to push, you don't need to pass the buck to the passenger whether to buy or not. And
No,
that is all.
if you're flying with Loganair, you're doing your bit. And I would also say we give the option of people not relating to the environment, but this is also part of our sort of charitable process. Our major charity, Children's Hospices across Scotland, Chas, when you buy a Loganair ticket, you can opt in to volunteer some small donation. I won't give you the proportion, but it's a staggering number of people who say, yes, I'll give something to Chas. And that's hugely rewarding. We talked a lot about should we make it mandatory, and we decided because it's charity that would be the wrong thing to do. And everybody, for example, I give personally to charities, but I also work for an airline that are a different charity. So I don't feel obliged to give to every charity. So we don't feel we should oblige everyone to pay for our charity choice, but we do think it's important for people to have the option, and therefore they can. So they do that by choice.
Fantastic. We've touched upon this a little earlier, but Scotland's unique geography creates both challenges and opportunities for
Yeah.
sustainable aviation. How do you work with the local Scottish government and the communities to develop policies that help them and help you as well?
Yeah, so it's all integrated in one form or another because Transport Scotland, which is part of Scottish Government, and the Transport Secretary and the Aviation Minister, it's a small community of very significant people who make decisions, and we're part of that decision making and that conversation. So I would say we have a huge respect for Transport Scotland and the Scottish Government. We actually lease 2 aircraft from the Scottish Government. They own the aircraft and we lease them from the government under an arrangement which sees us maintain them and fly them to hard-to-reach locations on their behalf, if you like. They're called public service offering routes. And the relationship is good, it's strong, and it's important because, so for example, we may lean into, let's take example, the Heart Aerospace. Let's say we lean into that technology more than another one. So that's the aircraft, that's the design, that's the flying piece. But that aircraft needs different ground infrastructure from aircraft today. It needs charging points, it needs electric grids, it needs, source of energy, it needs different parking arrangements, it needs different equipment. So if we don't connect now, we will find ourselves disconnected from the final solution. You don't really want an aircraft that's hybrid electric with nowhere to charge it in an airfield. That would be a bad thing. So, this all has to be integrated. Everybody's having a conversation at the same time. And that's why we need to keep all of the doors open, because if you lock into any one, you're asking others to follow and to deliver their part of the infrastructure. So Highlands and Islands Airports Limited, for example, I wouldn't ask them to make the commitment unless we were committing ourselves. And at this point, with lots of horses in the race, the fastest and strongest horse will emerge. And once we know which one of those horses it will be, that will be the direction of travel for the airport to move in to change their own infrastructure. And it's a different thing when you're asking them for hydrogen storage areas versus electric charging. My own personal view is there's going to need to be a bit of everything. Maybe not in every airport, because you won't need a hydrogen in every airport. But if you're going to be flying electric aircraft, you probably will need to charge them. But then that's not dissimilar to charging electric equipment or electric cars. So that's where we're moving generally as a society anyway. So that bit's not so revolutionary, but building a big hydrogen production and storage plant is quite a big shift. So we want to be connected not disconnected. The conversation has to be in the round, not on its own.
Right, right. Now, you're doing a lot of work that is speculative in the future, electric, hybrid, hydrogen aircraft, and you're doing things like offsetting operations right now, which are much more measurable. From the CEO's office, what metrics do you care about, which truly make a difference that you're monitoring over time?
So I would say that the big things that the levers at my disposal, for example, are how much fuel we burn and how much inefficiency and waste we have as a business. So the most efficient airlines in the world are those that have extremely strong practices already embedded on the ground. So, for example, in points like Stornoway in our map, we do fully electric turnarounds where we've got no carbon offsets, no carbon emissions within our ground equipment. There's one example, but that needs to be widespread across the country. But the real levers at my disposal are those relating to the efficiency of the flight schedule, the amount of energy and wasted time and resources positioning pilots, cabin crew, engineers to and from where the aircraft need to embark and disembark. So the more efficient we are behind the scenes, the more, because we've got 10 bases, we've got 10 locations and multi-sites around the UK where we have people. But for example, if we're a bit short in one base in the south and we need them in the north, you've still got to move them by car or by taxi or by train or whatever to get them to where they need to get to. So the less of that we do, the better. So we're looking really hard at our own carbon footprint in that sense. Fuel management is enormously important. So making sure we never want our pilots to take too little fuel for obvious reasons, but we also don't want them to take too much fuel, because every kilo you take above the requirement, you're needing fuel because of the weight you're carrying to burn that fuel. So you have to be very careful. You have to invest in the right technologies, the right systems. I'm not yet aware of how bad AI will be for the environment, but AI is a thunderous roar coming down at us.
Definitely the carbon footprint is growing.
I have no doubt it's going to impact our business and we will embrace it, but I don't want to embrace something that's going to be undoing a lot of the environmental work we've been doing on the other side. Pacing it, being careful, not being reactive, being quite considered. I think all of those things matter at the moment, especially as a CEO.
Fantastic. Luke, the final part of this interview is called the rapid fire round, in which we get to know you a bit more personally. And I'll ask you simple questions like, Luke, what's your favorite airline that's not Loganair?
I think my favorite airline, Loganair is clearly my favorite airline. I think my favorite airline, ironically, probably would be Ryanair. And I'll tell you why. Because
wow.
I'm going to tell you why, because I think Ryanair is an incredible story. I think Michael O'Leary is, from an aviation point of view, all the stories about they're reckless with customer service and they then don't have attention to detail and safety, and it's so wrong. It's so bad. It needs to be recrafted and reset. And I think people are getting it. You don't fly so many hundreds of millions of people a year safely by accident. And I think the people behind Ryanair work fiercely in a focused way. And when I fly as a Ryanair customer, my experience is generally a good one. I generally get exactly what I pay for. I generally arrive and depart on time. I'd love to emulate their operational focus because it's ruthless, rigorous, and consistent. And that's what we aim for from that perspective. They're a very different kind of airline, but I have a huge admiration for it. The scale they have, the size they have, the people they have, the approach they have. I don't think anybody can be anything other than impressed from an aviation point of view.
I love it.
Pays your money, take your choice. If you want to fly on an airline with other types of products, take your choice. But don't fly on Ryanair and then complain, because I think you get exactly what you pay for. And I take my hat off to them.
I love it. Brand promise, a simple and clear brand promise. Then I
really think it is.
This is the first time in 3 years of hosting this podcast I've had a guest say Ryanair as their favorite airline. And thank you for justifying why you said that. Your favorite airport?
Favorite airport? Oh gosh, I could offend everybody here, couldn't I, if I say the wrong thing? I will tell you probably. I think the airport I've got the most connection to, apart from Edinburgh Airport, is probably Sunborough Airport in Shetland, because we have such a big operation up there, and it's so pleasant to go through that airport, and the people are just extremely pleasant and friendly. and I really enjoy that experience. It's a proper regional experience. It's also a heliport, so we also fly oil and gas workers out of Sunborough on helicopters, and we take them up from Aberdeen there. So we have several different types of operations there. So probably the Shetland Islands.
Okay. Favorite book?
Look, several books, but I think the one I tell people to read, there are two I ask people to read if I'm in there's three. One of them is the original Delia Smith's Summer Collection of Food, because I'm a massive foodie, and that was the first cookbook I ever read, and I've still got it, and it's the most thumbed, and it's got food all over it, but I still use it more than any other. Although she may not be my favorite chef, but her book got my excitement going. But the two books I recommend in business, one of them is a book called The Fish Rots from the Head.
Yes, on leadership.
Bob Garrett, and that's all about leadership and the fish. Never look at anybody else apart from the leaders in a business. If you want to understand how culture comes down from the chief executive and the chairman into the business, don't blame anybody else, because the fish truly rots from the head if it's rotting, and it does sometimes in other businesses, not in mine clearly. And the other one is The 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, which is Stephen Covey. It's a really, really interesting book, and I just keep telling people, chapter 7, if I remember rightly, is the one that says, look after yourself, look after your own well-being, because it's never been sort of trendy to talk about that. But in business, people typically think about burnout, working too hard, but actually looking after yourself is really important, because you've got to pace yourself in business, and you've got to be top of your game health-wise, mental health, well-being, really important.
Love it. And you know what? It's one of my favorite books as well. And I've always found a struggle between sharpen the saw and look after yourself, because as leaders, we are often just leaning too heavy on sharpening the saw. And thanks for bringing another point in. What is something you do in your free time? I'm guessing cooking.
Yeah, so I am known. I'm known as a feeder at work and away from work. Nobody ever comes to my house and leaves hungry. I have a beautiful wood-fired oven in my house that we built especially for cooking and socializing in a small building in our garden, outdoor kitchen. And we sometimes have cooking lessons in there. And for me, there's nothing better than baking bread or cooking meat over 24 hours. I've got friends over tomorrow night, 10 friends coming tomorrow night, and the meat will go in today, 16 or 17, 18 hours ahead, slowly but surely. So it'll be melting by tomorrow night.
Love it.
I love breaking bread with friends. Probably that's my most enjoyable thing to do in the world, is sharing stories and time with people I enjoy the company of and who enjoy my company.
Brilliant. What is your favorite movie?
There's a few, but I probably, if I have to sort of plump to a few, one or two, I would say just one. Back to the Future.
Oh, okay. We're going classic. And okay. And in the future, what is something you would like to learn?
Patience.
Okay. All right.
I'm incredibly impatient. I want everything
now. What is the best advice you've received, Luke?
I think probably from Joseph at Wiz, which was, don't ever think about think a little about the consequences before you make a decision, but not too much, because you'll never make a decision. Good. Make your decision. If there is a consequence, then you manage that decision. You manage the consequence. So, paralysis in business is really prohibitive and stifling. So I'm often saying to people, just make a decision. If there are consequences, we'll manage those consequences, but do the right thing first. Unless it's completely reckless and hazardous, which most business decisions are not, you can make a decision and then you manage a consequence, whatever that might be, you'll manage it. But do the right thing each time. Don't try and plan it 20 steps ahead, because that's called paralysis. It's never healthy.
Love it. Okay. Final question. If we are speaking 1 year from now and we are popping champagne in next to your wood-fired oven, what are we celebrating?
It'll be celebrating that our customers have told us they put Loganair as the number one choice of their airline in the UK above Jet2, because we're number 2 at the moment.
Fantastic. All the best for that mission, as well as all of your long horizon innovative projects. I do hope most of them succeed, and I think we will be watching with interest the results of many of those. Thank you so much, Luke.
That's really kind of you. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air. Aviation is one of the hardest to decarbonize industries, yet there are multiple paths to get to net zero. Awareness is key to a green future. So please give us your support to help our sustainable aviation insights reach a wider audience. You can do this by sharing this episode on your network, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even WhatsApp. Or perhaps you might consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this episode. You can start a conversation with us by writing to us at podcast@simpliflying, that's simply with an i.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website green.simplifying.com and join the movement. Sustainability in the Air is an original podcast by Simplifying. The show is produced by Juraj Toth in Slovakia. Dirk Singer is our Director of Sustainability, who leads research for each interviewee out of Greenwich, UK. Shubhadeep Pal is our Supervising Editor based out of Mumbai and Singapore. The articles are written by Ayushi Badola in Dehradun in India and Meera Hull in Montreal, Quebec. Creative design is led by Ligia Esteve in Montreal. Baiba Drimain is the project director for the show based out of Valencia, Spain. Special thanks to Wendy Sim in Singapore. And I'm Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying and your host. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.